Welcome back to Katana TCG. In this week's early deck preview, we're going to be taking a look at Dragonite V-STAR that releases in our Pokemon Go set this July. When it's time to flex on your opponents in Top Cut this season, or even just upgrade your TCG accessories, make sure you're checking out inkgaming.com. They have a wide variety of custom playmats, custom dice bags, face masks, as well as mouse pads too, and a grip of sleeves and dice and deck boxes, all your TCG accessory needs. And you can use the code DADSPOD10 at checkout for 10% off your entire order from inkgaming.com. Your game, your style. So just looking at an overview of this list, it does appear that it is a little all over the place in terms of separate attackers, different energy styles, and just different methods to kind of navigate your opponent's way of play. So we'll kind of dive into what Dragonite V-STAR does and go from there. Dragonite V-STAR, which releases in our Pokemon Go set this July, has 280 HP. It is a Dragon type Pokemon. For 1 water, 1 lightning, and 2 colorless, it does ultimate impact for 250 damage, and this Pokemon cannot use ultimate impact next turn. And for 1 colorless, it does Star Dragon. You look at the top 12 cards of your deck and you may attach any lightning and water energy you find there to any of your Pokemon any way you like, then shuffle the remaining cards back into your deck. It has no weakness, which is a huge caveat to this card, and a 2 retreat cost. Because Dragonite hits 250 on the nose, we're able to add the Choice Belt to increase our damage total output by 30 extra damage, putting us at a whopping 280, which is really the core of this deck. It is damage output up and down the lineup, and now we'll kind of dive into every other card that's in this list and why they're here. Although it might seem very repetitive, Arceus V and V-STAR is the best energy accelerator in the game, hands down, and because Dragonite has such a wonky energy fulfillment cost for its attacks, it is necessary to have a Pokemon like this that can accelerate different types of energies onto your Pokemon. Arceus V, 220 HP, normal type Pokemon. For 2 colorless, does Trinity Charge. You search your deck for up to 3 basic energy cards and then attach them to your Pokemon V any way you like. And for 3 colorless, it does Power Edge for 130, weak to fighting, and a retreat cost of 2. But the Arceus V-STAR is the powerhouse of this deck, other than Dragonite. 280 HP, normal type Pokemon. For 3 colorless, it does Trinity Nova for 200 damage. And again, you search your deck for 3 basic energy cards, attach them to your Pokemon V any way you like, then shuffle your deck. It's V-STAR Power Starbirth, which is really the only V-STAR power we're going to be utilizing in this deck. During your turn, you may search your deck for up to 2 cards, any cards, put them in your hand, and then shuffle your deck. It has a weakness to fighting and a retreat cost of 2. So to set up our Dragonites, we are actually going to rely on Trinity Charge and Trinity Nova pretty heavily. I have also opted to go the route of running 3 of the Dragonite V that come out in Evolving Skies, as opposed to using the one that comes out in the POGO set, because this deck needs contingencies against things in the format. Shred is actually a really good tool, being able to cut through any Pokemon in play that may have an ability that negates it if it's using special energy like Skyscraper on Duraludon, or things like Decidueye or Miltank, which are becoming a little bit more pesky in a format like this. But the Dragon Gale attack for 2 water and 1 lightning does 250 damage as well, which is really where we're living, because the addition of Choice Belt to even this attack bumps us up to that magical 280 mark to be able to take 1-hit knockouts on our opponent's Pokemon V-STARs. There is a small caveat with Dragon Gale. This attack also does 20 damage to each of my bench Pokemon, but we play something along the lines of the Collapse Stadium to be able to shrink our bench and potentially take something off the field that may be easy fodder for our opponent to take out if I knocked its HP down by 20. Because it is a Dragon type Pokemon, it has no weakness and it has a retreat cost of 3. So now let's show you the spicy tech that I've included in my list, because I think it's important to attack every single turn. I've included things like the Empoleon V that came out in Battle Styles. It's a 210 HP water type Pokemon with the ability Emperor's Eyes. As long as this Pokemon is in the active spot, your opponent's basic Pokemon in play have no abilities except for Pokemon with a rule box. Empoleon V's Emperor Eyes ability shuts down Diance's Princess Curtain ability, so you are able to boss basic Pokemon off of the bench if you needed to. It also shuts down Mew's Mysterious Tail ability, and you're also able to shut off Miltank, and with 1 water and even just the attachment of a double turbo energy, you are able to actually attack through that Miltank and accelerate an energy from this Pokemon to one of your bench Pokemon, potentially setting up your Dragonite or potentially an Arceus for the following turn. It has a weakness to lightning and a retreat cost of 2. I've also included a Vikavolt V, 210 HP lightning Pokemon. For 1 lightning and 1 colorless, it does paralyzing bolt for 50, and during your opponent's next turn, they can't play any item cards from their hand. And for 2 lightning and 1 colorless, it does super zap cannon for 190 damage, and you discard 2 energy from this Pokemon. It has a weakness to fighting and a retreat cost of 3. Now, the paralyzing bolt is the only reason this card is in the deck. You're able to really put a stamp in the turbo engine that has come to fruition in the standard format as of late by being able to stop them from playing things like Scoop Up Net, Trekking Shoes, their Quick Balls, Metal Saucers, or even Dark Patches, so on and so forth, to really hold the game in your favor and prevent them from being able to do just about anything. Paralyzing Bolt is also good because it deals a small amount of damage as well, to be able to soften things up to come in and clean up with KOs with things like Arceus and Polion, as well as the Dragonite VSTAR. Seems a little silly to run 2 different Pokemon with mild amounts of utility. However, because we're running such a funky energy cost, and we have things like Raihan and we have things like Arceus that are able to accelerate energy into play, these are actually cards that are relatively accessible and at arm's reach for us at any given moment. In terms of consistency, we did opt to go the route of running a 2-2 line of Bidoof and Bibarel with its Industrious Incisors ability. Once during your turn, you may draw cards until you have 5 cards in your hand, and you can use multiple incisors per turn. Drawing cards is good. Having that mild amount of consistency is great. We're not running a super high supporter count other than Boss and Marnie to be able to manipulate our opponent or gust things into the active that we need to take KOs on. So it is important to kind of get into the meat of the deck with incisors and kind of making sure that we're getting the necessary utility we need per turn. Now, in terms of total damage output, I've opted to go the route of a Radiant Hawlucha with its big match ability. As long as this Pokemon is on your bench, your active Pokemon's attacks do 30 more damage to your opponent's active Pokemon VMAX. Radiant Hawlucha's ability is perfect for getting us up to that 310 mark when swinging with Dragonite V or Dragonite VSTAR to take a one-hit knockout on things like Mew VMAX. And Radiant Hawlucha also has an attack for 1 fighting and 1 colorless, Spiral Kick for 50. We will never be utilizing this. It is weak to Psychic, and it has a retreat cost of 1. We've also teched in a Lumineon, 170 HP water Pokemon, specifically for its Luminous Sign ability. When you play this Pokemon from your hand onto your bench during your turn, you may search your deck for a supporter card, reveal it, put it in your hand, and then shuffle your deck. And for 1 water and 2 colorless, it does Aqua Return for 120, and you shuffle this Pokemon and all cards attached to it into your deck. It is weak to lightning, and it has a retreat cost of 1. Important to note, because we do run Raihan and we do run Water Energy as well as Double Turbo Energy, we could potentially hit for 100 and shuffle Lumineon back into the deck at any given moment. I don't think that is really the core of that card, but realistically we're grabbing Lumineon to grab Boss's Orders or potentially Avery to manipulate our opponent's board state in any way that we can, but it is important to note that you do have the ability to attack with it at any given moment. We are running 4 Quick Ball, 4 Ultra Ball. Pokemon Search is really good, and because we're running the Bibarel with the Industrious Incisors, thinning out our hand to draw into better resources with Ultra Ball is key. 3 Boss's Orders to be able to gust the Pokemon into the active that we would like to attack into. We are playing 3 Marnie to manipulate our opponent's hand whilst also letting us draw into different resources out of our deck. We are also playing a 2 count of Professor's Research to be able to get into the meat of our deck and draw us full hands of 7 cards. And we are playing a 1 of Avery to be able to shorten our opponent's bench to 3 Pokemon and draw 3 cards, which is a really manipulative card in this format considering the popularity of things like Palkia. And it wouldn't be a Katana TCG deck if it didn't run a Raihan. I'm a big fan of this card. Being able to accelerate a basic energy out of the discard pile onto any of your Pokemon and go into your deck and grab any card is just very powerful. We're running 2 escape ropes to get around things like Diancie, as well as potentially adding a mild amount of mobility to a deck that doesn't necessarily have the most tasteful retreat cost in the form of Vikavolt and Dragonite V. We're also running 1 Ordinary Rod to prevent the Echoing Horn play, whilst also getting the funky counts of energy back into the deck to re-accelerate with things like Arceus if need be. 2 Choice Belt to bump Dragon Gale up to 280, as well as Ultimate Impact up to 280 to take KOs on our opponent's active Pokemon V-Stars. 2 Big Charm to make our bench sitters as well as our Arceus a little beefy, but also if we need to abstain a KO on our Dragonite, hitting 250 is almost as good as hitting 280, and it might be important to stay in the game a little bit longer with things like Big Charm. 1 Air Balloon to turn our Hawlucha or Bibarel into a pivot card and consistently use things like Escape Rope to affect our opponent's board state whilst we're able to retreat into the necessary attacker to apply pressure. Dragonite V-Star is a really cool card that could benefit from things like Crystal Cave. Being able to heal 30 damage off of each of my Dragon-type Pokemon once per turn is super cool, and given that Dragonite doesn't have a weakness because it is a Dragon-type Pokemon, it's going to be really hard for my opponent to take things like 2-hit knockouts if I'm consistently healing damage while also giving huge damage outputs in the form of the Dragon Gale as well as Ultimate Impact. Path to the Peak is a very manipulative card, and that's why I put one of them into the deck. After we've used things like Starbirth and Luminia's Sign, it might be important for us to just slap down Path to the Peak, get the Vikavolt V into the active, hit for 50 damage, and make sure our opponent isn't playing any item cards to kind of shut them out of the game, especially against things like Palkia. And we are also playing a one of Collapse Stadium, being able to get rid of one of our Pokemon that might have gotten softened up by our own Dragon Gale attack, potentially getting rid of 2 Pokemon if my opponent has a full bench and I have a full bench, against something along the lines of the Palkia deck, is being able to take away 40 damage from their total damage output, which could keep us in the game a little bit longer. There is 4 Water Energy, 4 Lightning Energy, and 4 Double Turbo Energy, and all of these are very multifaceted, as we can apply the Double Turbo Energy to Lumineon, we can apply it to Empoleon, as well as the Dragonite V-Star and the Dragonite to use the Shred attack, and most importantly, it is useful to expedite the Trinity Nova or Trinity Charge attacks on our Arceus V and V-Star. I imagine that Dragonite V-Star is going to be applied in multiple different ways, but this seems to be the way that I would try to play it, and I'm looking forward to really proxying this deck and seeing how it can hold its own in this wonderful V-Star meta that we've got going on for us. I think the Dragonite V-Star has a ton of potential. I think that there's a lot of builds that you can take into account when you're playing something like this, and I personally think that the high damage output list that I brought to you today could be one of the more fun ways to play it. If you enjoyed the content, make sure you like the video, comment which deck you want me to talk about next week below, and then subscribe to my channel and turn your notifications on so that you can see when I upload early deck previews and other stuff that I might be adding to my channel very soon here. And if you transitioned over here from Pokemon Go, or if you're here from Pokemon TCG, make sure you're checking out the PokeDads podcast every Friday, anywhere you listen to your podcast at, where Rick, Scott, Aaron, and myself all talk about all things Pokemon. Deuces. I don't wanna work, I just wanna play Pokemon all day.